guys, welcome to a brand new episode of SideQuest Podcast. Listen in and level up. I have a great episode for you today, but first, as always, let's get through the show notes. If you're not following the Facebook page, head over to Facebook, type SideQuest Fitness into the search bar, and like the page. There, you're going to get updates on podcast episodes, articles when they get posted, and you're going to get a brand new taco recipe every Tuesday for Taco Camp. Plus lots of other shenanigans and nerd talk throughout the week, so make sure you head over to Facebook. You can follow me on Instagram. My handle is SideQuestFM. If you want to see some cool videos and random stuff on Instagram as well, you can follow me on Instagram. Same handle, SideQuestFM. Or follow me on Snapchat, SideQuestFit. Follow me there. Send me your questions. I want to get all the questions from you, help you as much as I can on your fitness journey or your journey in life, whatever it may be. But head over to Snapchat, SideQuestFit. Follow me there. You get a little more personal, in-depth look at the shenanigans I get into throughout every day. But I do love getting questions from the community, so please send them out to me. If you have not left a review for the podcast, please head over to iTunes. If you're not listening on iTunes and you listen on SoundCloud or Stitcher, leave a review there as well. When you leave reviews, it helps me move up the charts on the iTunes store so that more people can see and hear the amazing guests that I've had on and have on each and every single week. So make sure you head over there. And don't forget, if you haven't picked up your copy of the 7 Principles of Fat Loss, head over to sidequestfitness.com/7 principles, and you can pick up your copy of the 7 Principles of Fat Loss. These are the same 7 principles I follow each and every day and teach my clients to help them shred away more body fat, unlock heroic strength, and just look better naked. So if you want to unlock strength or just look better naked in the mirror, head over again, grab those 7 principles of fat loss, and start following those today. What's up, guys? Welcome to the show. So over the last few months, you have heard me talking about my online clients, and you've heard from a few of my online clients as well about what they've done on their fitness quest with me. With summer heading in, I am taking a few more clients on to help people get ready for summer, help you get ready for bikini season or swimsuit season, or maybe this is your first time. Maybe you've decided that that's it. You want to get in shape, and you need someone to help you with your journey. On your journey, you need a Gandalf and a Samwise to guide you as you head into Frodo. And I am your Gandalf and Samwise, all packed in to one. I am taking on a few more clients. If you are interested, head over to sidequestfitness.com/coach and check out the page. You can apply there. You can find out more about what coaching entails and also see some of the amazing transformations that my clients have had while working with me. So head over to sidequestfitness.com/coach and apply today. Hey guys, welcome back to a brand new episode of SideQuest Podcast. I have an amazing guest for you today. He's not really a fitness guy, but he did write a book about a marathon. But even more important, even more badass, is he's a writer for The Simpsons. He has written dozens of episodes. He's an executive producer on the show, and we talk about his experience of going from a couch to running a marathon. It's an amazing book written by Joel Cohen, who is my guest today. I want to shut up because this is such a hilarious and inspiring episode to listen to. So let's get into the show. Let's hear from the executive producer of The Simpsons, a writer for The Simpsons, and just an all-around amazing human being, Joel Cohen.
Step up and you gotta get it fitness. Host Rob at the moment and the quest is you gotta check it and wreck it. You're breaking personal records and with the help of the guests you won't be guessing on the lessons. That's a +5 fierce. Got a low-key bamf right here. You wanna meet him, there's no better way to greet him than to strike a boss pose. Take a look into the mirror.
All right, guys, welcome to the show. Like I said in the intro, I'm really stoked to have the guest that I have on today. Not only did he write a book about doing something that terrifies me, aka running, he actually ran a marathon. He is a guy who is a fellow nerd, but he's also a writer. But he's a writer that's actually a more well-accomplished writer than myself. I just get paid to write fitness things on websites. He gets paid to write episodes for the fucking Simpsons.
Wow.
So and he's won awards, so he's a more accomplished writer than me. But the one and only Joel Cohen, welcome to the show.
Thank you, and thank everyone out there for holding their applause.
So, Joel, you ran the 2013 New York City Marathon, and you wrote a book about that experience. What made you want to write a book about that experience and not like write a Simpsons episode about that experience?
Oh, trust me, I've pitched the episode, and like most things in my life, that was a failure as well. I ran the marathon, and then I didn't know what to do with it. I started writing an article for a Canadian running magazine. I'm Canadian, spoiler alert. I'm not sure what that spoils, but and then I just wrote such a long article. It seemed like, it seems like work to cut this down. So I'm like, maybe if I just go a little bit longer, I can sell this as a book. And that's sort of what happened. So I'd overwritten an article and then just turned it into a short book.
Okay. All right. Had you ever thought about writing a book before, or like?
No, and people that read this will suggest I never write another one. But it was just a fun exercise too. I mean, I'd never even didn't know that world at all of publishing and editing and all that stuff. And it was fun just to even see that side of the writing world as well.
So, Joel, reading through the book, which is hilarious, and there's just so much amazing self-deprecating humor and just so many amazing lines that, like, I'm reading it and I like read it to my wife and I was like, okay.
Wow. What a romantic evening.
Well, I didn't read the book out loud to her.
Oh.
It wasn't like I sat there and went, story time. I'm going to read to you How to Lose a Marathon. But just some of the lines were just really, really hilarious.
Oh, thank you.
Why run a marathon? What got you off the couch? Like, what inspired you to do that?
As I sort of talk about the book, first of all, let me establish for anyone listening, I'm a complete idiot. So I was not a real big exercise guy, although I do like sports. So the only time I would ever exercise would be in some sort of sports, and I suck at every sport. People could be making up a sport right now in New Guinea, and I tell you I'm the worst person ever at it. I love sports, and I read this book, Born to Run, which I'm sure you and your probably podcast listeners are familiar with, by Christopher McDougall. And I read it, and I had this epiphany that there are people out there that actually enjoy running, which was a mind-blowing thing to me. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to try this. I tried it before, and I tried it, and I hated it. But then I got competitive with myself, and I was like, can I go from a mile to a mile and a quarter to a mile and a half? And then that just built more and more. And then I'm like, all right, if I'm doing this, let me set a goal for myself to compete against my fat, lazy body and see if I can run a marathon. And that's what the book is about, just someone that has no business running, kind of running a marathon.
So you just said you suck at every sport ever. How did you get competitive with yourself if you suck?
It's a great question. I guess in my mind, I always win over my body, but I just, I've enjoyed playing sports ever since I was a little kid, and I have never been good at them, but I just like it. I guess I like being, part of a team, and there's some competitiveness somewhere inside of me, hidden behind my gallbladder, if I was to guess.
So being a writer for, obviously for The Simpsons, you've written there for 16 years, executive produced, and done a ton of things. I can only imagine what it's like to be in that room with other writers pitching jokes. When you came in and you were like, hey guys, so I've decided to get off the couch and I'm going to run a marathon. How did the room respond?
Well, I didn't really share it with anybody because I was certain that maybe I wouldn't go through with it. And I literally only told people like the 4 days before I was boarding my flight to New York. I mean, people knew I was running because I was losing weight. I couldn't maintain my 220 pounds, even swallowing Doritos as fast as I could. So that people knew that I was running, and a guy I worked with had told me about a couple running apps, Runkeeper in particular, that I had used. So he and I would talk about running, and we were friends on Runkeeper, and he could see that I was running longer distances, but no one, including myself, really thought I would finally run this marathon. So I just really told people like 4 days before, and then they were very cool. Everyone was great. There's a way to follow runners online when you run the marathon, so everyone in the room was following me online, and then a very nice, I'd say standing, but it was kind of more seated ovation. And it's hard to clap when everyone has one hand in a Dorito bag. This is a great promo for Doritos, by the way. You should get a sponsor for this thing.
I'll see what I can do.
All right, me too. Please.
Let them know. So, Joel, when you finished it and you were done, what was your first thought once you crossed that finish line and were done? I know you sort of cover it in the book, but now that you've had years to sort of look back on it and you finished a book, like what really was that first thought?
Honestly, the one thing I talk about in the book, and I'll talk about now, is that it was just this incredible feeling of accomplishment. As cynical and sort of jaded as I am, I was actually sort of proud of myself that I'd done this thing, and not even partly myself, but I suspect maybe you or your listeners have all been at the end of a race of any length, and you just see the way people react to it, and you get caught up in it because it's this sort of overwhelming sense of people that have just done something that maybe they didn't think they could do, or they've done it better than they thought they could do. And I got caught up in that too. And it was a cool feeling because as I sort of talk about in the book, I've been lucky enough to have sort of some accomplishments, but this was one that was just purely me, didn't involve, everyone else in the room writing everything and me sticking my name on it, et cetera. So it was a great sort of overwhelming feeling of accomplishment.
That is, I think, accomplishing something you never thought possible is things I see with my clients all the time, online, in person, is they're like, oh, I didn't think I could do this. And,
right.
It's overwhelming, when that sort of happens. Like, I've seen people cry. I've witnessed that. But a lot of times when we're in the middle of that process, and I know as a writer as well, you're in the middle of writing something you're really passionate about, you really love it, and you get writer's block, or you just get really frustrated, and there's like 12 different voices in your head telling you one thing, and you're like, no, I want to make this joke, it's going to work, and then like you read it, and you're like, it doesn't work. So you're pushing through that process running, and this sort of applies to the writing process, as well, because you say in the book, like, I kind of hate both, but I like being done.
Exactly.
So what do you tell yourself in the middle of the process to keep yourself going? How do you not just give up?
Talking about running, I suppose, specifically right now?
Both. We can mix.
Both.
I have, again, my audience is fitness enthusiasts and also coaches as well. So I have writers who listen
Right.
to this and talk as artists and creatives too.
Well, I guess just to talk about running, I'm a lot of the book is talking about how I had to trick my brain into remembering or thinking I was not running. So I just shoved anything I could in my ears as far as like audiobooks, podcasts. My ears are so well read, you wouldn't believe it. But so that was the only way I could get through it is literally not remember I'm doing it or not think I'm doing it. And I just really try to find super engaging books, which I found several, and I'd listen to those while I ran. And that was the way to get through it. And then, of course, there's other little things you can do along the way of a run, which is, change your route and like get lost, which I did many times. And then there's sort of this challenge of how do I get home? Often I didn't. I end up in Slovenia quite often. But so that's sort of how I would manage to get through running. And then writing is just there. I wish there was a way to do that in writing because there really isn't. And writing is just slamming your head against the wall repeatedly until finally the thing you have is slightly better than what you started with. And I'm looking for, if anyone out there has a secret for how to get through writing, please tell me.
Honestly, I think it's kind of like hitting that wall that you mentioned in the book. You just kind of got to keep going, give yourself some fuel, and whatever that fuel is, whether it's books, whether it's, taking a midday masturbation break.
Wow. I'm enjoying one of those right now.
Oh, well, usually people tell me they don't wear pants on the podcast when I interview them, but that's the first time I've had that happen. So, so Joel, how many marathons have you run since? This was, 4 years ago by the time the book was published, or almost 4 years. So how many have you run since?
It's quite a big number. It's 1.5 since then. I was sort of, I'll say, in shape, although, put a big asterisk next to that because I was in whatever shape I was in. It was an oval if I had to pick a shape. But I decided before I had to retrain and get back up to this level, let me see if I can do another one. So I did the Chicago Marathon like 11 months later, which was great, although my finish was slower somehow. And then like 5 months after that, 6 months after that, I did the LA Marathon because same reason. But I already knew I wasn't going to finish the LA Marathon. I just thought I'd already signed up for it, and I was sort of kind of hurt and also definitely lazy. So I'm like, I'm going to run half of this thing. So I ran like 12 miles, turned off the course, called an Uber, and went home. But I got to experience the LA Marathon, and parts of LA I don't normally run in, so that was something different.
I'm just wondering what the conversation was with the Uber guy when you got in. He was like, wait, were you running the marathon? Yeah, I quit.
Yeah, he's like, I can't help but notice a lot of BO in the car. And I was about to say the same. But anyhow, it all worked out.
So, we've sort of covered it, and I know you said that, you kind of just decided to get up and do this and give yourself that push. And in reading your story, Joel, and getting to know more about your history, your brother inspired you to become a writer. You moved out to LA. You were kind of doing your thing. You went to school for business, and then you kind of got into that world. Working with him. Was there someone who gave you the inspiration to actually do this, or was it just like, I'm going to challenge myself?
I guess I'd always dabbled in writing, and I was living in Toronto, Canada, and my brother was living in LA. My brother was and still is a pretty successful writer-director. So I would say that he, because he moved to LA and did like the classic story of like was a security guard at a mall and just kind of really scrapped his way up to becoming a writer. And that I found was a bit inspiring to me. And like, if this moron I've seen in his pajamas for 20 years can become a writer, then maybe I can too. And he was very helpful to me and giving me advice and introducing me to some people to get started. So I guess he was the inspiration to become a writer. Even with sort of his guidance and help, it certainly was not easy. But jumping ahead perhaps, but when I moved to LA, I had a sort of business job in LA, and I did that for 2 years. And then I met a little bit through my brother, Kathy Griffin, who some of your listeners may know and may also hate. But anyhow, I met her, and she was great. She still is a friend of mine, and she was very helpful in letting me write bad jokes for her for award shows and a bunch of stuff. And then eventually I got on the TV show she was on, which was Suddenly Susan, Hold for Applause, There's None. And then from there, sort of things got rolling. I got on The Simpsons after that, and here we are now.
Yeah. So is there something that like now that you're working on as a writer that like you're really stoked for? Are you going to write a second book about like your history as a writer, or is there like a TV show or something that like you're pitching to, something you're really excited about?
Yeah, I mean, I'm always like I said, my life is rife with failure, so I'm always working on like 9 or 10 things, and usually 9 or 10 of them fail. Occasionally one squeaks through. So right now I'm like with a couple of guys from The Simpsons. We've written an animated movie, which we're trying to sort of get off the ground. I'm always sort of involved with a couple TV shows. There's I don't know, probably not supposed to say this, but I am. I was sort of hoping that I could maybe try to turn the book into some sort of fun, sort of goofy sports documentary. So I'm fiddling around with that a little bit. I do some online stuff, and then there's just like little, sometimes one-day movie jobs and stuff come up. Am I passionate about any of that? Particularly passionate about if there's anything this book can translate to as far as a sort of fun sports documentary, I'd love that. And this animated movie, I guess I'm excited about, but it's been 5 years and we're struggling to get it going. So it's hard to maintain that excitement, but I pretend.
What if the book became an animated like documentary?
I'd love it. That's sort of part of the idea, is to have some animation or fully animated. I don't even know if it's going to happen at all, but I'd love it. I mean, again, it's all laziness. I've already written the book. I'm like, well, what do I do now? Create something new? No, just turn this piece of garbage and recycle it into something else. So that's where I'm at right now.
What did you learn in the process of not only running your first marathon about yourself, but in writing your first book?
That's a good question. So first of all, congratulations to you. I'm proud of you. I don't know. I thought it's a lot of writing on your own. I mean, when you write on a TV show, you write the first draft of a script, but then it is entirely rewritten and punched up and jokes added to it by this room of 15 geniuses. And the whole time I'm writing, I'm looking around for the 15 geniuses, and they weren't there. So I guess it was, again, and I'll go back to the marathon. The book itself also feels like a bit of an accomplishment because aside from this great woman, Samantha Weiner, who is the editor, there's no one helping you to write it and to figure out how to shape this story. I might be generous calling it a story, but there's no one there helping you. So I guess that also it was cool that I felt like in the end I had done this to whatever level of quality it is.
You go through this experience and you write about the experience. As you started that experience, and now that you've been through 2.5,
throw a 5K on there and it's like 2.6 maybe, not a 2.55. Sure.
We'll round up and we'll just say 2 3/4. So
let's just round up. Let's round up to 7. Why are we stopping? We're not slaves to math.
No, fuck math.
Fuck math.
Yeah.
I hope math is watching
this. With conversion rates,
inflation.
What is something that, like, if anyone listening to this has ever thought about running a marathon, maybe they've only run a 5K, what's one thing you wish you had known or had at your disposal when you started this journey that might have made it a little easier?
Let's see. I think, honestly, I know there's this is a shameless, horrible thing. I know there are books like this out there, but I did not come across them. And I wish I had read a story of someone maybe like myself that literally went from 0 to 26.2, patent pending. But anyhow, I feel like I didn't know that. I knew lots of people ran marathons. I knew people ran very slow marathons, but I guess I'd never really known all the steps of the process. And that's only my own fault. I can only blame myself. All the information's out there. I just didn't have it at my fingertips. So I just wish I guess in retrospect, I had talked to somebody that had run a marathon, or somebody had told me, hey, these are the things you need to know about energy gels, and these are the things you should watch out for. When I went to the actual marathon, and I ran as part of this charity team called this great group called Shoe for Africa, there was a guy there that was this guy that was like speaking to the room, giving us all this great advice the day before the race. And I was like, where were you 4 months ago? And like telling us, don't go out too fast and make sure you hydrate and da-da-da-da. So I wish I had sort of had that mentor the whole way, and I didn't. But, I offer myself up as a mentor to anyone out there that wants to stumble through one.
Well, and you've written, an amazing book. Like I said, I laughed throughout it. I learned a ton of things. Again, I'm primarily like a weightlifting guy, and I'll get on a bike. I don't like I will sprint. Like if there's a sale on whiskey, or like there's Star Wars tickets going on sale at midnight, like I will
often
sprint.
The same place.
Yeah.
They often Star Wars and whiskey package deals.
Yeah, they do. Oh, there's so many things I want to say there. Yeah. But like, I will sprint. I don't like running long distances, but you've written a book that doesn't make it as boring as and tedious. Like you give the experience and you say, this is what I learned. This is what you're going to have to expect. And here's some really funny things to kind of go along with it. So it humanizes it more than like listening to someone or reading a book about someone running, 10 marathons and
right.
Whatnot.
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, listen, I would say to you and to anyone, honestly, this sounds like a cliche, but if I did it, you can do it. Even someone in a coma right now, I tell them they could do it if I did it, or an iron lung, I think they could do it. It's just, and I did it just as sort of a personal challenge, and obviously you're very fit and you work out a lot, so there's no question you could do it, and probably most people listening to your podcast could absolutely do it. And I just say, if you ever are interested in that specific challenge, it's 4 months, and you could absolutely do it.
Do you have any other physical challenges that now you've done a marathon or 2.5, 2 3/4, 7? You've done 7 marathons. Wow. We've established it. Now that you've done this, are there other physical challenges that you have found you've jumped into or accomplished?
I'm looking for them. Honestly, like I'd love to find something else that is that sort of concise and encapsulated, like the marathon, that, hey, I can train for this for 4 months and 5 months, and I could do it and then have that feeling of accomplishment, and then ditch it or do 2.5 of them and then abandon them. And I don't know what they are. I mean, I sort of thought about, well, maybe I'll climb a mountain or train for that, or I don't know what. I'm definitely looking. I haven't found it. How about that? But I'm definitely looking. One of the things I've thought about, but I've already missed sort of for this year, is you can rollerblade the Berlin Marathon. And I thought, it's a lot easier than running rollerblading or inline skating, depending on our sponsorship. And I thought that'd be cool, get to go to Berlin and see Berlin in a cool way. So maybe I'll do that next September, but I've kind of missed it out for this year. So maybe next year.
I one, did not know that, and two, now plan on doing that at some point in my life.
All right, let's do it together next year, man.
Yeah, I used to speed skate. I miss rollerblading, and that would be an amazing way to see Berlin.
Yeah.
And we could put little like rockets on the side. So like for hills, we could just like tap it and kind of like, push ourselves up.
Or of a very subtle rope onto the person in front of us and just kick back and let them do the work. Right?
I got you, Joel.
All right.
I'll wrap the rope around me like kids you see in New York City like attached to ropes. So
yeah, totally. I'd be like a chariot with you as my horse, and I just kick it.
I'll get one of those horse heads and put it on.
All right, deal
for that part of the.
I'm so on board.
If you started training again, is there a city besides like Berlin that you would love to run a marathon in, or even say like a 10K?
Yeah, I mean, the reason I chose Chicago as my second of 7 marathons was that there are these things called the World Marathon Majors, which are also not coincidentally the most iconic marathons. So I'm going to mess these up. I think there's 6 of them. There's New York, Chicago, Boston, of course, Tokyo, Berlin, and London, I believe, are the 6. So, I mean, it'd be fun to run one of those. Berlin, I mentioned, would be fun to run or certainly inline skate through. I think Tokyo would be awesome. London would be awesome. And Boston, of course, would be super amazing. But Boston, you either have to go in through a charity, which I did for New York, or you have to qualify by having a time. And I think the time for my age is like 3 hours and 40 minutes. And if anyone's read the book, that is not close to the time I ran the marathon. So the only way I'll make the Boston Marathon is if I live to be like 80, where the times start to drop into kind of the stratosphere I could reach when I'm hoping when I'm 80. So maybe, I'll probably put away Boston for now, but I'd love to do one of the ones overseas. Like I think Tokyo would be amazing if I could do that, or London, but it may not happen.
Well, speaking of the time, Joel, you did beat
Yes.
Oprah. Have you
Yes.
rubbed that in her face yet?
Every chance I get. Her and I are not speaking at the moment. We weren't speaking before or during or ever. But no, if I run into her, trust me, there'll be some serious trash talk, and she will have the most confused look on her face why this moron is trash talking her. But you'll know, and I'll know.
So Joel, we'll go to the fun question part that
Yeah.
I have for all my guests.
Sure.
Joel, if you could go anywhere in a time machine, where would you go?
I would go to the start of this podcast and try it all over again and try to get these answers right. You don't see a lot of people using time machines to go back 25 minutes or like even a minute, but that's, I'd be like a DVR and like skip commercials. I'd go ahead 30 seconds. So I don't have to watch commercials. Really lame, small pursuits of a time machine. That's the kind of stuff I have in mind.
That's the best answer I've gotten. Everyone is like, I'd go in the future to see like how much we fuck up our lives, or I'd go back and like hang out with Teddy Roosevelt, or, or Marcus Aurelius or something like that. And you're like, I'm just going to go back like 25 minutes.
Yeah, totally.
What's the last new thing you've tried? So you tried this marathon a few years ago, but what's something new you've tried recently?
Yeah, my body got a little beat up from running a lot, so I've sort of scaled back my running. So I wanted to keep doing something that was cardio, but not such impact. So I actually joined the Los Angeles Rowing Club about a year ago, and I've been rowing for about a year, once a week or sometimes twice a week. And that's kind of cool. That's a different sort of team sport, and I'm horrible at it as well, as anyone that's ever rowed in a boat with me can tell you. But, there's 8 people in a boat and a coxswain. And it's a cool cardio workout, different part of your body as well, although it's a lot of legs. But it was just something different I tried. I'm sure many of your listeners have heard this great book called Boys in the Boat. But this is one of the sort of best, most inspiring sports books I've ever read. So that sort of got me thinking about rowing. Obviously, you can see I'm just inspired whatever book I read. If I read like Where the Wild Things Are, I'm going to move to the jungle, or like, everybody poops. Who knows how that'll turn out? But anyhow, so that's something new I tried, is rowing, and I liked it. I don't know that I love it, but I liked it.
Okay. So speaking of books, what are you reading right now?
Let's see. I just finished. I'm sort of in a little bit of a fiction tear. I just finished this. If you're a nerd, and if there's nerds listening, Ready Player One. If you remember that.
So good.
So I literally finished it about 3 days ago, and now I see the trailers online too for the movie.
Yeah.
So that's cool. And then a friend of mine wrote a very popular book called Where'd You Go, Bernadette? So I'm just going to start that. I've started it now while you're asking questions, I've been reading some pages. So that's what I'm reading right now. But that's just fiction. I read a lot of nonfiction, but that's the fiction I'm into right now.
Cool. Just because being the huge nerd that I am, what was your favorite, what did you enjoy the most about Ready Player One?
It's funny. I'm not a real sci-fi guy, but I love video games, and I love I sort of experienced the 80s. So a lot of the references were super cool. I just thought it's a well told story and super captivating and engaging. I guess I just say like all the video game references. I mean, every time I hear Defender, that I perk up. And you don't get to hear it that often these days. So I loved all the 80s references. Kind of cool.
No, you don't get that. What was your growing up? Because I'm again giant video game nerd. That's the reason it's called Side Quest. Is because the main quest is to live an awesome life. Side quest is all the other knowledge you can gain. But what was your favorite game growing up?
I was a big Defender fan. I would not say I was great, but I love Defender. Do you remember this game called Armor Attack, where you had like an aerial view? And I can't remember if you were a tank or a helicopter. I think you were maybe a tank. And it was this horrible graphics, just like sort of outlines of different military vehicles, and you'd have to stage like a battle, but you'd be viewing it from an aerial view. So that was another big one, Armor Attack.
Cool. Do you play any? Do you get the chance at all? I mean, I know you're a father of two, but do you get a chance at all to play any games today?
Yes, sadly, I do. I mean, not sadly that I do, but sadly, most of the games I play now are on my phone. That's sort of my new set-top device, or my new console is my phone. So I play a lot of games on my phone. I'm into, Clash of Clans or Clash Royale, if you're familiar with those games. And I work a little bit with those people, so that is also a shameless plug. But a lot of sports games, like I've got NBA Jam on my phone, and a lot of baseball games, and some stupid football games, and then just a bunch of games on my phone. How's that for the answer?
Dude, phone is a great place to get some great games.
Yeah. What about you? What are you playing?
So right now I've been playing this stupid card game, which is kind of like Magic the Gathering, but in the world of Skyrim.
Wow. Skyrim sounds like a bad porn film, but I'm interested.
Oh my God, I've never thought about that.
Yeah, well, let's think about it now. Let's take a few minutes and think about it.
It's Nordic inspired porn. So it's like Star's Viking series, but a porn version of that.
Right.
Really
we have to rush to the Writers Guild and get this certified
and get this approved.
Yeah.
Cool. So last fun question. It's kind of it was like fun but slightly inspiring, but I feel like with your sense of humor, you're gonna answer this very uniquely. Joel, if you could write a note to your younger self, what would you say in only 2 words?
Less velour. There's some photos of me like decked out in velour. I look like a chair in a bad hotel. So I would tell young Joel Cohen, stop wearing so much velour, especially with the braces. It's a bad look.
So Joel, going back to the book a little bit, we got another 10 minutes or so here.
Sure.
One of the things I really, really enjoyed, and I think you can take this wisdom into almost anything in life, is you said you can't run 5 miles if you haven't ran 4. Bad runs happen to good people. The first 3 miles are just warm up. Celebrate what you did. Don't dwell on what you didn't. And you can't be done if you never start. And just like 6 lessons that you learned, through that process. How do you think those 6 things have applied to other areas of your life? Or do you see any sort of correlation into how they work?
Well, it's hard to, I guess, maybe think about them all, but some of the stuff, I guess, is just a lot of times, we were talking about writer's block earlier, and I work with this super talented guy named John Frink. Also, he is the inspiration for the name of the professor, John Frink, incidentally, on The Simpsons. But he has this great thing about writer's block called a puke draft. We're into writing now, but and his basically premise is when you do the first draft of anything, just puke it out. Don't hold back and don't edit yourself and think the quality is not good. Just literally get it out, the full length of the whole thing. It's easy to go back and kind of change it and fix it and tighten it and improve it, but just finish it once is a valuable thing. So, I mean, in a sense, I guess what I was talking about is a little bit similar with any task. Obviously not surgery. Don't just finish it once, then go back and fix it. But with writing or something, a lot of stuff, it's just I just think it's so easy to get hung up on the idea of oh man, I got to do this I got to do this good, and put good in quotes. I have to do this well. And a lot of times you just got to do it. And then by doing it the first time, you can go back and improve yourself and make it better. I think that's very true of writing and also probably true of running. And now it sounds super profound, so I'm going to stop there and let people think about it.
No, I every draft I put is a puke draft. It's just
Yeah.
like vomit, and then I do have a really bad habit though. If something that like I'm really passionate about, I'll like vomit and then I edit and then I vomit and edit.
Yeah.
Like, no, get the whole thing out.
But that's fine too, because sometimes you will have a mini inspiration, but don't just get hung up on that thing. If you can stop for a second and keep going, that's how it should be.
Yeah. So what is that your writing process? Is that how you write as well, or do you have a different process?
No, I mean, I'm pretty much the same. Like if I'm writing a first draft of anything, a chapter of a book, or make it sound like I've written many books, but a chapter of anything, I literally just pound through it. And I know it's ugly. I know the shape of it is horrible. I know it doesn't make sense. It's certainly not funny. But I always find it so much easier to go back and edit it myself and change jokes and move things around to kind of find a structure, as opposed to just, get hung up on every paragraph, every word. So yeah, that is what I do. I just throw it out there, and then I have a piece of clay I can kind of work with. But I got to get it out there once to start.
Which, funny enough, sounds like the first run that you made in the book. You just kind of went out there, you did it, and you were like, "Oh God, I can't." Like,
this is not pretty. It never got pretty, but it might have got slightly prettier. But it never was something to admire.
Cool. Well, we're at 30 minutes now, but I do want to talk a little about just The Simpsons, just because.
Let's do it, man. Let's do it. Bring it.
It is what you've done for years. So you. And I viewed this process that you've worked on for 16 years in the same vein as the marathon. So you're doing this for a while. You're 12 miles in. Your brain is thinking certain things. You're 12 years into The Simpsons. How do you keep making it fresh when it feels like, obviously, The Simpsons have made every joke before? There's that great South Park episode where they're like, well, The Simpsons did it. We can't really, they've done everything. So how do you keep being fresh and keep pushing the envelope?
It's a super challenge. I always sort of say we have painted ourselves into a corner, and the only thing we can do is paint a new corner. Because just recently we recorded our, I'm going to say 640th episode, 630th episode, which is incidentally the most episodes ever written of a TV show. We just passed Gunsmoke. For all your Gunsmoke fans out there, suck it. So it is. There's this incredible canon of material that we're always up against, and a lot of times we'll sort of feel like, well, we did this story, but we've never done it for Bart, or we've never done it for Lisa, and is that enough of a change, enough of a twist? So we're always trying to sort of keep it fresh, and we are really fighting this history of the show and all the stuff that's been written for the show. So it's a huge challenge. That said, I think every year there are, I would hope, at least 10 or more episodes that are just somehow someone has come up with something we've never done before. And it's this amazing shaft of light that beams through because it's fresh and new. And the last thing I'll say is that, a little bit we try to mirror society. So, there's always new things being presented in the world and in society. And we just sort of jump on those wagons, which didn't exist even 20, 30, 10 years ago.
So, sort of speaking on that, I know that I found some videos of you speaking at conferences, just to get as much info as I could, and find some good questions.
Wow. And what a sad life you've had up to this point.
Super sad. The saddest.
Is that a noose I see behind you?
And in one of them, you talk about some of the funny things you've gotten from the censor from Fox, because it's interesting that. The Simpsons has been on Fox as long as it has, when they tend to be very, critical about certain things, not putting forward-thinking things out there at some times. But you get these crazy things back from the censor, and you're like, but these are the jokes. This is what we're doing. This is what we're making. How do you maintain that authenticity the Simpsons has when society has become more conscious and aware of jokes and people seem to be more sensitive? How do you still push that envelope without offending people?
Well, it's true. The Simpsons is such an institution that I think it has, in one way, helped break down a lot of these sort of stereotypes and barriers, and people are in some ways more game to be made fun of. And then also right now the show is sort of having a bit of a controversy because the character Apu, so there's a couple of things out there now that are suggesting he's this sort of racial stereotype and it's unfair and et cetera. So, what I like to say is that the show is full of stereotypes, and the group that is made fun of the most of on The Simpsons is sort of yellow or white Americans. Like Homer is presented sort of as a bit of the typical American and is an incredible stupid oaf. So I'm always like, I think the show, by offending everybody and sort of showing the flaws and sort of things we can laugh at every group, you sort of hopefully takes away sort of the sting of feeling like we're unfair to any one group. I would hope. And so the censor is sort of sensitive to that stuff, and they do pull us back to try to make the last thing I said mildly entertaining. I'll tell a brief story, which I feel like I can tell on this podcast because we've talked about porn and swear it already.
Yeah.
We had this one episode where I actually wrote it, but I didn't write this joke, where originally Grandpa Simpson had slept with a woman and woke up in the morning and basically was propositioning her again. So the original line in the show was, "Hey, baby, want to take another ride on the Abe train?" Because his name's Abraham Simpson. So, want to take another ride on the Abe train? And the Fox censor said, "That is way too dirty. You can't do that." So we went back to the writer's room and we had to rewrite the line. And Tom Gamble, who's this incredible, funny writer, he came up with a new line, which was actually on the show, and in my mind is way dirtier. And the new line that was on the show is the same thing. Abraham Simpson wakes up next to this woman, and instead of saying the line I mentioned previously, he says, "Hey, baby, can Honest Abe have another term in the Oval Office?" And so that was on the show. And I always point to that as this for a creative way around a note that made it so much dirtier and so much funnier.
That's amazing. Oh my God. Because it is way dirtier.
Yeah,
way
totally.
Dirtier.
And that was on TV. I think the episode's called Brawl in the Family, if anyone wants to see that live.
That's hilarious. So last question on The Simpsons before we wrap
totally.
up. What took so long with the movie? Because that, like, for years, everyone was like, give us a movie, give us a movie. Were you guys just like, nah, we're not, like, what do we do?
First of all, making the show is a ton of work. And then to add a movie on top of it was a ton of work. I think it took 4 years from the first minute the script was worked on until the movie came out. I think people feel pretty happy with the way it came out, and it was a bit of a success. So that was 10 years ago. Literally 10 years ago, July 17th or July 27th might have been the 10-year anniversary of the movie. So it just took forever. It was so much work. And also at the same time, we had to keep making the show. So it was just a lot of work, not only for the writers, but for the cast and Jim Brooks and Matt Groening and everybody else. But it was a ton of work.
Yeah, I can only imagine that. I'm sure as writers, you guys were like, oh, we wrote a script, and the animators are like, oh my God, I have to spend all this time animating.
So they were going nuts. It was also the same guys that were animating the TV show, and then of course we had extra animators, but you cannot imagine how much work and how late into the process these guys were still killing themselves animating. So a great job by all. 10 years later, I'll offer them my congratulations.
So Joel, we're gonna wrap up. You
Okay.
wrote an amazing book, How to Lose a Marathon. Hilarious, gives a great telling of your story through the whole process. If anyone is listening and thinking about doing it, I know you already said if I can do it, you can do it. But what is one thing you would like to leave the audience with when it comes to having an idea of something you want to do and then finally seeing yourself through with it?
I'm going to sound like Tony Robbins now. I'm whitening my teeth as we speak. I just think I would just encourage people, look, try it. You may not do it. You may fail, or you may fail doing it like I did. But there's the worst thing in the world is just not to try and do something. And if you think you can probably write a book better than me, or you can run, I'm sure, better than me, or whatever it is, paint a room. I don't know what your goal is, but I just encourage anyone, if it's fitness related or just life related, I just say trying and failing is a lot better than not trying. How about that? So I would just say, just try. You got nothing to lose, and just get out there and try.
I love it. Guys, I'll have links to Joel's book as well over on the website, sidequestfitness.com/Joel Cohen. That's where you can get the show notes for the episode as well and grab a link for the book. Joel, I've enjoyed chatting with you. I enjoyed the book. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Please keep up all the amazing, awesome work you guys do at The Simpsons. You've had me laughing since I was a kid, even though I wasn't allowed to watch The Simpsons because my dad thought I would imitate Bart. I had a few years I had to catch up on via like DVDs, but
I'd like to talk to your dad about that.
Awesome. Well, Joel, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you very much. That was great. Thank you.
Step up and you gotta get it fitness. Host Rob at the moment and the quest is you gotta check it and wreck it. You're breaking personal records, and with the help of the guest you won't be guessing on the lessons. That's a +5 fierce. Got a low-key bamf right here. You wanna meet him, there's no better way to greet him than to strike a boss pose. Take a look into the mirror.